podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come out and check out this video. So I am going to do a reaction / analysis of a popular, well, I don't know if it's very popular, but of a message that's going around the so-called manosphere, talking about pickmes. And in this, so in this space, there's a woman named Courtney Michelle. I think I'll put her picture up, and or at least a thumbnail of a show that I did about her, in which she talked about her experiences and why she left the manosphere. It was a show I did. She actually thanked me for that. So I'm going to analyze something that was written with her in mind. Maybe not specifically about her, but certainly she was the target. The type of woman that she is was a target. And a woman by the name of, as you can see here, Danielle. I'm having problems with my mouse here. Danielle Procope Bell. Who is of the University of Tennessee at Knoxville, has written about her, and so again with her in mind, not specifically about her. And this comes from Feminist Media Studies, and the name of the article is "Pickme," in quotations, "Pickme." I'm going out having problems lately with my computer here. Black women, tactical patriarchal femininity in the black manosphere. So this is an article that has been talked about by a couple of different other individuals, in which they are calling women who are claiming to be more, man, I want to choose my words here carefully, more docile, more feminine, more using their feminine wiles to attract so-called high-value men, or be chosen, and for marriage or long-term relationships or partnerships. I don't know what is going on with my computer here. I don't know why it's, anyway. So with feminism, right? So feminist media studies. So feminism is the idea that, women should be seen in a certain light. They should be allowed to vote, to move in this world as men, to work and attain or achieve as much as men, and things along those lines, right? And there are some who are saying that this is negative. No, some by women, I'm saying that this is negative. Our place should be more of nurturers, family and home makers. And if feminism is about choice, right? Your body, your choice. You can go into the workplace, or you can choose to be a homemaker, or you can choose to be a high achieving mogul. I don't think anybody has a problem with that. I certainly don't. But it seems as if those who are in the feminist camp, and this is what this article seems to be saying, or at least what I've heard it to be saying. I want to go through it myself and go through it with you. Seems to be saying is that if you're of the feminist mindset, then you should, then there's a looking down their noses, a looking down their proverbial noses at individuals who are choosing to be homemakers, or choosing to act in a certain manner that that is advantageous to others. And when you act in that, it advantageous to the males who are going to be provider males. If that act, and them acting in this manner, is called a pick-me. So if you're a feminine woman, if you're a sweet feminine woman who's fit, feminine, friendly, as in this space it said, fit, feminine, friendly, and you are trying to do, you keep yourself together, you're cooperative, you believe in the leadership or headship of a man over you, whether it's your father, an older brother, or eventually a husband, then that somehow makes you a pick-me. And it's used as a pejorative, as a negative. And so, others in the feminist camp would say, you're your own person, and you don't need male validation. You don't need male protection. You don't need male approval or anything that they would deem it. And I'm sure that I'm putting a spin on it that somehow they would disagree with me. But I'm sure that I've tried to encapsulate a very fair definition of pickme and feminism. And for the record, again, I don't have any problem with feminism. I think the ladies should be able to come and go and do as they want. If they choose to be with a man, choose not to be with a man, okay, whatever. But I just find it ironic for generally when you ask ladies about what they want, what type of qualities do you want in a man? Generally, they will say, I want somebody who's a leader, protector, provider. Generally, I would say, and my adding to what they would say, as long as my definition is that ladies generally want a man who's somehow more than them. They want a man who's taller, who makes more money, who shows a certain level of dominance and leadership. So it's ironic that they would then call women who want to fall in line with that to call them pick-me's. That's just my opinion. And use it as a pejorative. So this comes from the Department of Africana Studies, Africana Studies at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. She submitted the article, looks like, in December of 2021. So this article has been around for a while. I just heard about it. It's 2024 as I record this. Revised again in 2023. So this is probably when she heard about Courtney Michelle, and then probably made some revisions to it. And then it was accepted by the end of the year in 2023. So, sometimes when you do these things, it takes a little while to get through the vetting process, the peer review process, I should say. So finally it was accepted, I guess, in 2023. I don't know what else they had to do. So we'll go through it. I'm not exactly sure how long I'm going to make. I'm going to make this pretty long, but if you see me change clothes or anything like that, it's because I either I'm going to break this up in part 1, part 2, part 3, or whatever, or I'm just going to stop it. Or make it just one long video. I don't know how long I'm going to be. I probably will just do part 1, part 2, part 3 because, to make a 4-hour video, because I plan to not only read this, but go through not every single one of, but many of the articles. So this is going to take a little bit. Because whatever references she's referencing, I'm going to go through that. I'm really, really thirsty. Now, I have read a number of what's a prominent woman, Bell Hooks books. I'm looking at my library here, and I don't know. Some of this I have on my Kindle, but I'm pretty sure I have a book called We Real Cool. I'm pretty sure I have that around here somewhere. Anyway, I read a book by Bell Hooks called We Real Cool. That is considered one of the anthems. And let me see, there's another book. I have it on my Kindle here that somebody told me I just had to read. It's a fairly recent one. You got to read this book. Bell Hooks. What books do I have? Oh, I have Real Cool on my Kindle. And I also have The Will to Change and Where We Stand, Class Matters. So those are 3 books that I have on my Kindle. I read all of Real Cool. I think I read some of The Will to Change. And that's about men, masculinity, and love. I do not find Bell Hooks to be the paragon of oratory skills, literary skills, whatever. She hardly uses any references, and I think it's the second book that I talked about, The Will to Change, where the first citation in the book was her citing herself in another book. I don't know. Listen, I don't know. And I read a couple of other. As I go through this, right, I read a couple of other things. Again, and this is not to dump on all of feminism. I think it certainly has its merit and has done some good things, no doubt about it. But some of it I just don't understand. And I didn't understand until I really came to this space. And because I didn't see what was happening to them, right? I came up in a world where women were principals, right? I'm a Gen Xer. I'm a Gen Xer. Women were principals of schools. I saw them owning businesses. What the complaint is, I couldn't see it. Their teachers, principals. I had lady doctors. I don't know what anybody's talking about, right? And I never had a problem with it. Didn't think there was anything wrong with it. Had women bosses. I don't know. I didn't see it. So, but what I have a problem with and is what this so-called maybe third wave feminism, or the question, has feminism gone too far in the other direction? So, if in case you haven't noticed, this is going to be if you're not into, if you want some action, this is not going to be it, right? So, we're going to talk. We're going to get through this, right? And so, I really wanted to kind of digest this and try to understand why this Danielle Procope Bell, I'll just call her Danielle Bell, why she would attack this woman. As we'll see, I don't understand that attack, because she calls her out by name. She attacks her by calling her out by name and attack this type of person. And I think that the femininity is about, we live in a world where feminism, and DEI is about inclusion. But it seems to me that masculinity is really the one that's under attack. And that's what we're having a problem with. That's what many men are having a problem with. That's what many men are having a problem with. Man, I'm going to need some more water. So let's get into it. So before we get into it, right, so we'll take a look at, and this is for anyone out there who doesn't really understand Africana studies, right? So Africana studies, so let me just, I did pull up this. Okay, so this is from Kansas, University of Kansas. And University of Kansas. What is Africana studies? Black studies, or Africana studies more broadly, is an interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary approach. Using the same word. Okay. So it's not just psychology, it's sociology. It's both of a multi. Okay. To studying and understanding experiences of African people and African descended people across the diaspora. It grew mostly out of campus demands made by Black students and their allies and supporters during the mass protests in the late 1960s and 1970s. And I'm glad that they did come up with something that we could take a look at the lived experiences of African people, African descended people. From the outset, the goal of Africana studies was to transform higher education, chiefly by addressing the lack of faculty and staff diversity, altering traditional curricula limited by Eurocentric paradigms, centering the study of people of African descent in the university canon, linking academic teachings and scholarship with social and civic engagement, and raising critical questions about the purpose of scholarly knowledge production, the nature of truth claims, and the overall mission of higher education. In other words, they wanted to not only, when you study anything that's in academia, for a long time, it was only through the lens, through the worldview, and this is what they're talking about, Eurocentric paradigms. That was the claim, right? When you study psychology, we're looking at it through that lens, right? When you study sociology, it was through that lens, right? So these are the lenses that we're trying to change. And if you get them into higher education, and then you can help to give voice to people who were voiceless and who didn't have a way of getting their view and problems and their feelings and their worldview out into the world, right? Africana studies were the first in a series of academic fields that would challenge social hierarchies and diversify the academy. Soon after Africana studies units appeared, ethnic studies and women's studies followed. That is, Africana studies was a scholarly invention that seeded the soil for growth for other contemporary areas of knowledge production centered on identity, difference, and representation. And it provided a critique of and corrected two forms of social dominance. As a result, attention to race, class, and gender and sexuality have become normal in liberal arts and humanity curricula across private and public institutions of higher education. So when you look across these institutions of higher education and you see them, and you see these different types of classes, gender studies, ethnic studies, Latino studies, etc., right? They all are the progeny of Africana studies. Significantly, Africana studies also became a laboratory for interdisciplinary, interdisciplinary approaches combining humanities, social science, literatures, and methods, which most U.S. colleges and universities now actively promote as being key to higher education in the 21st century. At the University of Kansas and elsewhere, Africana studies has encompassed multivalent approaches to such topics as diaspora, art, culture, religion, women, gender, sexuality, health, politics, and social and economic policy. The changing focal points of Africana studies have also reflected important demographic transformations among the black population in the United States, most especially the post-1970s rise of mass incarceration, as well as the growth of immigrants from continental Africa, Caribbean, and Latin America. So they're taking a look at all the things that have happened since the introduction of Africana studies. And I'm certainly glad that they have, right, because this is all important. Our art, our culture, our religion, our women's sexuality, health, politics, and economic policy. Taking a look at all the things. What is going on with my computer? So this is just some of the things that this study has significantly opened the door for, and I'm glad that they have. Now, I've never taken. I've traditionally gone to school online. So if you're watching this for the first time, I don't know, if this is going to gain any traction or not. But you don't know anything about me, right? I was a police officer, and I went back for my bachelor's, master's in higher education, and I never took any studies. Right? They didn't offer these as electives. They offered classes like diversity or something like that. But there was nothing Africana studies. So I've never taken an Africana studies class. I never have. There's a professor, Dr. T.S. Johnson. He has his own set of classes. And if I can find any for free, I certainly want to take them. I don't know if I want to be writing papers and take the books, but certainly just to read, it's particularly from an academic, right? Because I can go out and read. I have many books here in my own library about African history and all that. But to put it through the critical lens of scholarship, is probably a little bit more, and what you want us to know and all that. So he has his own program, and I plan to do it one day. And it's not just him; it's some other African American scholars are talking about it. So anyway, I digress. So that's what Africana studies is. So I don't want to ramble here. So let's get into the meat, the heart of the article here before I put everyone to sleep. Again, this is going to be kind of long. So if you're working or you're going for a walk or whatever, this is going to be the perfect thing for you to put in the background and listen to as we go through this. So let me get back to where I was here. Yeah. All right, so let's read the abstract here. We'll try to read the abstract and get through the introduction here, and maybe we'll call it for tonight. The abstract. This essay analyzes anti-feminist pickme, in quotations and in parentheses, black women, anti-feminist pickme black women, content creators on YouTube who exist within the black manosphere, online spaces populated by black men who support black patriarchal dominance. Let me also just say, scholars, I've been tasked to look into something that affects black men in particular, but many of others within the social sphere of black people. So it's myself and a few other people who are going to be looking into this. I'm not going to go into what study that is right now. So it is, you're supposed to approach these ideas with, from neutrality, from a position of, from neutrality. You're supposed to look at this and be neutral and just follow where the evidence takes you. And I'm not sure if that first sentence that I just read is exemplifying that. But let's go on. So I started to talk about me. I was a police officer for 24 years, so therefore I cared about the community and went back to school for a bachelor's degree. Well, the first degree I completed was my associate's degree, and then went back to school, got a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's degree in forensic psychology, and then I went back for a PhD, which I completed, and in leadership with a concentration on criminal justice. So I studied the social sciences, and so that's just, that's why I'm interested in this. And I just really want to understand what all the hubbub is about. So back to this. These pick-me content creators use what I term tactical patriarchal femininity to attract the financial provision of an economically stable black man and to derive income from sympathetic viewers. So in other words, they're just playing with you. I think that that's probably a fair statement. I think that there's a lot going on in this space that is really not about elevating. And when I talk about the black manosphere, I'm talking about individuals who really want to help black men become the best versions of themselves. We have been left behind, kicked out, lynched. We have been incarcerated. Something 65% of all exonerations are now happening to black men, something like that. So all of this has been a target of black men. Malcolm X said that the American system of economic policies and capitalism is all built on the subjugation and the effeminization of the black male. I absolutely agree with that. So in this space, there are people who really want to make it better. I really want black men to be better. And if it gets me to have if it gets them they to have better mate selection, then that's great. But we ought to be better for ourselves, right? First, we ought to be better for ourselves. And that's going to cause, therefore, that's why I study psychology, because I wanted to understand where our mindset comes from and how we got into this place and what we can do to get out of this place. And I think that we can use the manosphere to help to elevate our thinking, to elevate our attitudes, etc. So that's just a little bit about what I wanted to do. So let me continue on. Tactical patriarchal femininity is an elaborate, all-consuming embodied performance that is much about emotion as it is about exuding conventional attractiveness and behavior that is aligned with traditional femininity. Okay. But she's saying it's a performance. That's the operative word. There's performance. Why can't they just be really they may be real. I don't know. Tactical patriarchal femininity exists to combat the matrices of oppression created by capitalism, white supremacy, and institutional patriarchy. In other words, in order to get the best selection, you have to put on this performance because of the system, the social system that we live in of capitalism, white supremacy, and institutional patriarchy. I do not believe that we currently live in institutional patriarchy. We might have in the past, but I do not believe that we live that. Probably since the 70s, right? Since they changed things in the 70s. Anti-feminist black women work in reaction to the misogynist material realities that victimize black women. Ultimately, the black manosphere's explicit disavowal of black women's worth. Ultimately, the black manosphere's explicit disavowals of black women's worth, apart from what they provide for men as their roles of patriarchal lies, is dangerous to all black women, including and especially those who claim anti-feminism. This is an abstract. This is supposed to be bipartisan. This is supposed to be neutral. This is I disavow. I don't know anyone who's disavowing a black woman's worth. Worth as human beings, certainly. I don't know anybody. I don't listen to people who talk like that. Anti-feminism does not combat dehumanizing views that posit black women as masculine, unmarriageable, and undeserving of care and support. Anti-feminism does not combat dehumanizing views that posit women as masculine, black women as masculine, unmarriageable, and undeserved. So in other words, you're not fighting back when black men say that a certain type of woman is masculine, unmarriageable, and undeserving of care and support. These feminists, these anti-feminists, these pickmes don't push back against that. All right. Rather, anti-feminist black women work to make themselves exceptions to the rule in a bid for conditional respect and protection that rarely materializes long term. Okay, so she made a very, very harsh claim that it really materializes long term. So listen, I think that we're all about trying to fix black communities, all about trying to fix the perception of black men, black women, the black race is in particular. And I think that, I don't know if it's conditional, but this is her feeling. I don't know if I would say it's conditional. I think that love is certainly to a certain level conditional, right? You do for me and I do for you, right? Transactional type of behaviors. Now we want to pretend like it's not, but you let a man stop working, right? You let a man stop working, see how much worth he is, right? You let yeah. Let me stop going to work and see how long I can hold the attention of a respected woman, or a respectable woman. Introduction. Courtney Michelle, a black woman content creator on YouTube, readily self-identifies as a pickme, a derogatory term used to describe anti-feminist black women. She regularly posts content explaining the virtues of being a traditional and feminine woman in her video titled "I'm a Traditional Woman Now, but I was once a modern woman." Courtney discusses her experience being an anti-feminist content creator. "I think my voice gets overlooked or silenced by the boisterous, loudmouth, bitter women that want to overtalk. I know what I'm saying is truth. In the blackmanosphere, of which Courtney is part of, boisterous and loudmouth are terms associated with anti-manosphere black women. By contrast, Courtney positions herself as submissive and feminine. Courtney is part of a growing population of pick-me black women content creators who perform what I term tactical patriarchal femininity. Tactical patriarchal femininity is a performance used to attract the financial provision of an economically stable black man, and in the case of content creators, it positions them to derive income from sympathetic viewers, blackmanosphere men and aspiring women housewives, right? So everybody's watching this, or maybe it is just a performance in order to get views, clicks, likes, and therefore you get paid from YouTube and or get cash apps, et cetera, et cetera. I certainly believe that there's a lot of that going on. But she's saying it's a performance that Courtney Michelle actually doesn't mean what she's saying, or that other women in the space don't actually believe what they're saying. They're just doing it. And maybe they are completely opposite when you turn the cameras off. I don't know. This is exemplified through careful posturing via social media sites such as YouTube, where black women demonstrate both their willful subordination to men, their willingness, and being perhaps the most important part of it. Okay, it's their willfulness. Why should their willfulness be such a problem? And the perks they experience as a result. What are the perks, Ms. Bell? Which they state with thankfulness and humility. I use the word tactical to acknowledge that it is elaborate, all-consuming, embodied performance that is as much emotion and work. So here she has a citation. I'm going to go through this citation because I really want to understand this. Okay, so if it kind of bleeps out for a second there, I am going to be going back and forth between reading some of these. So this article right here is about emotional work, and there's an exchange that goes on. So I had to read that. So a lot of this I'm going to have to stop and read because I'm admittedly not very familiar with much of this. But anyway, so this is an article by Miss Arlie. I'm assuming that's a woman, Russell Hochschild. So it's about if you do this a certain amount of work, then you'll get a certain type of reward. Essentially, that's what it's saying, emotional work. As it is about exuding conventional attractions and behavior that is aligned with traditional femininity. Importantly, tactical patriarchal femininity exists to combat the matrices of oppression created by capitalism, white supremacy, and institutional patriarchy. This makes anti-feminist black women seemingly contradictory, since their capitulation to patriarchy is for an explicit purpose for bettering their lived realities under white supremacy and patriarchy. And she has a picture. Child, please. The man provides, and now the woman is able to start at a home business, start volunteering meetups, etc. Y'all can keep working 9 to 5s, going 50-50 with men. I'll take my provider any day, right? So this is really an attack on the type. This seems to be an attack on the women who choose to use their emotional work, their emotional labor, their emotional, and in return for the type of emotion that they're getting, is to be able to build a home for family, and if they can start a business at home or whatever, then that supports the family in that manner, rather than getting up doing a traditional 9 to 5. Anti-feminist black women understand, at least on an implicit level, that tactical patriarchal femininity is a currency that may be redeemed for protection and providence with the context of heteropatriarchal relationship. And that's the way that, listen, let's just be honest, that's the way it was for all of human history up until the 1960s. That's the way that it was. Good, bad, and different. Everybody had a role to play, because men were generally bigger, stronger. They went out there and fought with the beasts and fought wars, and quote unquote brought home the bacon. That's where the term comes from. And so that now things want to change. Okay, listen, you got anybody who wants to go out there into the workforce is certainly happy to do so. I got something in my eye here. Due to this, they have co-opted the term pickme to celebrate the purported ability to be picked by the men to be their wife. Just like members of the LGBT community adopted and transformed the word gay, just like for a black community, they have adopted, co-opted the term, the NIGGA word. This is the same thing that they're doing. So let's not act like this is the first time that we've seen this. Women also, particularly black women, are co-opted the term female dog, B, right? You've co-opted that term. So this is not the first time that this has happened. They understand being a pick-me as helping them to achieve their cultural pinnacle of idealized heteropatriarchal black womanhood, which demands an unwavering focus on a husband or boyfriend and children. They derisively label anti-manosphere black women as a pass me. I never heard that term. I haven't read this article, so I gotta kind of go through it. Women to illustrate that, unlike them, they will not be picked for marriage. The hetero patriarchal family structure is elevated far above other arrangement, and as a result, black women who are neither patriarchalized wives or actively aspiring to become one are demonized and shamed. Seems to me that each side is shaming and blaming each other. That's what it seems to be to me. Pick me black women are negatively influenced by three main factors: the fear of protracted singleness, the humiliation of misogynist, Moya and Bailey and Trudy, I gotta go to that, cultural stigma, and notably the threat of poverty. I'm gonna pause right here because I gotta read this. So this term, means this citation right here is an attempt to give credit to the term misogynist to these individuals here. And they wrote this because they coined the term in 2008 and started writing on in 2010, and they don't seem to get credit for it. So that's what that citation stands for. Black women, like people of all genders and races, desire romantic love and often believe they must trade in their personal autonomy for submissiveness to earn it. Do black men, I'm just saying this to be fair. Do black men also have the right to experience romantic love, but do they get not to have to do some type of provision, some type of performance in order to get that? Whether it's emotional labor or whether it is working, right? Even from biblical days, right? If a man don't work, he don't eat, right? So what right do you have to demand romantic love if you are not a protector, provider, and all that? And so there's something that this has to go both ways. As Bell Hooks, right? I forget why she doesn't capitalize her. Is it first or last name or just first name? I suppose she would know. There's a reason she doesn't do it. I don't remember what it is. As Bell Hooks wrote, the wounded child inside many females is a girl who taught from early. The wounded child inside many females is a girl who has taught from early childhood that she must become something other than herself, deny her true feelings in order to attract and please others. We all have to. Okay, all right. That's what she wrote. Pick me, a black women are masters of self-objectification and alter themselves according to the stated preferences of black manosphere men. So there's an inherent in this to say that somehow black manosphere men aren't worthy of that, right? If you're a protector, provider, you are this type of bread earning man, then you want something for your labor. You don't just get it just because you smile or because you look good, right? Same thing. That man has worked for something. He deserves something on the other end. What is it that you're going to get? Wanting to avoid misogynist cultural stigma embodied in controlling images such as the mammy welfare mother Jezebel cannot be minimized to low self-esteem or selflessness. Male identification, since it pays actual dividends. As Tressie McMillan Cotton notes, respectability rewards are a crapshoot, but we do what we can within the limits of our constraints imposed by a complex set of structural and social interactions designed to limit access to status, wealth, and power. I want to read this, and I want to pause right here to read this. So this essay by Miss Cottom was an M. Respectability rewards are a crapshoot, but we do what we can within the limits of the constraints imposed on us by a complex set of structural and social interactions designed to limit access to status, wealth, and power. In other words, you got to conform. So this essay that she wrote was a collection of essays that was turned into a book about her being thick. I think that's the name of it. Thick something, respectability or something like that. It's in, you can get it on Amazon. So that's what that is about, right? So in other words, you got to fit in order to get what you want. And this is, some people don't like that, right? This is the way that it goes, right? They just want to be able to fit in and want people to like them. And it's particularly when it comes to romantic love, like me the way that I am, right? Or I'm not going to subdue my autonomy. I'm not going to sacrifice that. That is to say that tactical patriarchal femininity enables anti-feminist black women to pursue, albeit not necessarily achieve, a higher status, social status because of their performance of being a good or worthy woman. Cultural stigma derives their performance of tactical patriarchal femininity because black women's perceived value as wives, mothers, and skilled and dignified workers is ultimately connected with our social economic positions and feelings of self-worth. Right. So in other words, they're putting on a performance in order to get some type of social interaction or social hierarchy leveling up rather than doing it on their own merits, AKA getting a college education, AKA moving up the corporate ladder, AKA, starting your own business, all that. The threat of poverty is another reason why some black women support anti-feminism. Low-income black women are often at the vanguard of what Nikki Lane calls ratchetness, which she defines as a purposeful lack of regard for black middle-class norms concerning gender and sexuality. Lack of regard for social middle-class norms. Is that what the ratchetness is? I mean, I got to read this book. I got to read this too. I would say it's not just a lack of that. Again, I haven't read this work, but I would say it's not a lack of that. It's a purposeful act of demeaning behaviors that are ultimately destructive. That's anybody, you can lack middle class values, norms, but you don't have to act in a certain negative light to do it, right? When we look at Sexy Red, when we look at Sukiana, who doesn't know the difference between a musician and a magician.
What do you know?
That you're a musician. But that's why I'm interviewing you today, so I can get to know you.
So I'm a musician.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck that mean? Make magic or something? What is musician?
I think you're confusing that.
Yeah, I'm not no musician. I make music. I make music. And that's not all I do. I make music, I act. I'm a TV star too, a young mogul.
Just really quick, I think you're confusing.
I'm not confusing nothing because you don't know. You thought that all I was a magician or whatever the fuck you said.
See, that's what I think you think I said. No, I said musician, not magician.
I don't think, baby. I don't think. What is that? That's ghetto. I don't think. I know.
So you
think.
I didn't say magician, Suki. I said musician. And I think you are a musician.
No, baby. I do music.
So you just really quick. For the record, could you say you don't think you're a musician?
I'm not none of that.
But then after that, you just said, I do music.
Yeah, I do music.
So, in other words, you're a musician.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
This is problematic. However, poverty can also be a disciplining force that compels black women to strictly adhere to traditional femininity, right? It'll help you keep in line. You want a certain social mobility, you don't want to be in poverty, then get in line. Black women have the highest rate of labor force participation of all women, but are disproportionately more likely to work low-wage jobs. And there's a lot of people who are trying to do something about that through college and through trying to better themselves. No shame and to them. Keep doing what you got to do. But you can help to get out of that faster if you hook up with a man who's doing as well as you. Right? If you're right now, if you're making $30,000 a year and you hook up with a man who's making $30,000 a year, now between the two of you, you're making 60. Right? Now you can save some money and somebody go back to school, somebody get a trade, somebody start a business. That's what this was, right? I started a business. These low-wage jobs create what Ari Rothschild has called a care deficit. Many low-wage jobs held by women lack healthcare benefits, paid time off, and parental leave, a stable schedule, and even enough pay to cover high-quality childcare. Therefore, get a mate. That's what this system is built on. Somebody get out there and hustle, and somebody else has to take care of the children or elderly and all that. Despite black women's disproportionate rate of low wage employment, that's not anybody else's fault. Let's not start pointing fingers at people saying they're being held back by the patriarchy. You're not. 70% of black women are the sole primary breadwinners of their families, and 14% are co-breadwinners. So still, they're making money, 70%. So if this is true, if 70% of women are the sole breadwinners, then that means what I'm saying is that black men need to step up to some great degree. And traditionally, we all know the black men were the last ones hired, first ones fired. They were laid off. They were left out of the social mobility of going to college, left out of promotional opportunities, all that type of thing. That's what we needed the shackles to be taken off of. So this role wouldn't be so heavy upon the lovely ladies. So that's what I'm trying to advocate for. Become the best version of yourself, black man. Trevor B. Lindsay states that the structures of systems of racial and gender inequality that uphold economic inequality encase black women and girls in a sadistic cycle of struggling for basic necessities. I don't agree with that. That's what she says. Structures and systems of racial and gender inequality that uphold. It's not. I don't know if it's gender. I can't say it's gender. Let me read this. Let me go read this. So this seems to be a book about the struggles. I have not read it. It's a book. It seems to be free on Google Books. I don't know if I should say that out loud, but I'm going to try to mark it and try to read it. Obviously, I'm going to read this first. I have not read this particular book by Miss Trevor B. Lindsay. It's a cycle that without question would wear anyone down. Black women can never fully realize the spoils of promised to the most privileged white women who fulfill their neoliberal feminist ideal. Instead, they fully accept that it is in their individual responsibility to find a patriarchal man who will economically provide. White women are doing that too. They're doing that as well, but it seems to be, okay, it's just black women being held back. And maybe this is what Fry and maybe they have convincing arguments, but I have not heard this. I have not seen this. I have not seen where black women are held back because of their gender. I have not seen this. I've not read supporting articles about it. I've not. So maybe these two books, and books are not considered, generally are not considered valid empirical evidence, scholarship. They're not. But they might provide some of that in the book. Ironically, anti-feminism is inherently neoliberal and used as a strategy to compete for finite resources of moneyed men. When anti-black feminist women are assumed to be male, black women are assumed to be male identified for no greater reason than low self-esteem, critics ignore their real motivations, and this prevents a thorough understanding of why anti-feminism is quietly thriving online. Male identified for no greater reason than low self-esteem. So just because they want a provider male means they have low self-esteem. That's the implication. Because you want a provider male, because you want a strong leadership-oriented man, that you have low self-esteem. And I know she had other definitions in there, but rather than capitulate to this position in the underclass, anti-feminist black women are attempting to mediate a position in the middle class through their alignment with patriarchal men who ideally would serve as protectors and financial providers, shielding them from sexual violence, cultural stigma, and a misogynoir-laden paid workforce and poverty. This strategic subjugation is, in their understanding, a pragmatic acknowledgement of the limits of racial capitalism. Limits of racial capitalism. Okay. They desire to eke out a material comfort and support in tandem with love, leisure, and respect through heteropatriarchal relationships. These anti-feminist spaces steer black women towards an idealization of housewifery that is paired with full embrace of women's intellectual, sexual, and financial subordination to men. You don't want to give something to get something. And listen, again, you want to work, get your education. You want to be, go for it. Go for it. I don't have any problem with that. Anti-feminist black women often believe they are choosing between submitting to the direct cruelty of a late-stage capitalism. Late-stage capitalism. It seems to me that capitalism is probably on its last legs, and submitting to a husband who functions as an economic provider. They don't want to be in the past. Ms. Bell, Professor Bell, Dr. Bell, whoever she is, does not want to be in the past. Anti-feminist black women reject the most conspicuous aspects of the racist and sexist trope of being of the strong black woman, which has long plagued black women by praising their strength, perseverance, and willingness to disregard their own needs. I don't think that that's what that means. It's kind of pejorative, right? They celebrate patriarchal femininity as a web of prescribed limitations that protects them from arduous and poorly compensated labor in the workforce. So this is where they get into this multidisciplinary stuff, right? So you wouldn't have to work as hard if the capitalists would just pay us enough, right? Okay. All right. There's probably some truth to that. But they're not paying you. They're not paying you low because you're a woman. They're not paying you low because you're a black. They're not paying you low because you're a black woman. That is inaccurate. They celebrate patriarchal femininity, women responsibilities. Late stage capitalism creates a lower black woman. However, they do not acknowledge the physical and psychological burden of being solely and mainly responsible for all unpaid labor within the domestic sphere, and the psychological and personal costs associated with embodying the distinctively subordinate position that women are relegated to within heteropatriarchal family structures. Now, this is a projection, right? So the payment or the reciprocation, I would say, is that you have this protector provider. You don't have to work outside. You get whatever, your hair done, your fingers and toes done, all this kind of stuff. So you get all that in the domestic sphere. In the psychological and personal costs, what are psychological and personal costs are embodying the distinctively subordinate position? What psychological costs? What would those be? I wish that she would elaborate. Maybe she does. I haven't read this, but maybe she does elaborate about what psychological and personal costs. What of not having to go out there and fight with the boss, and not having to be sexually harassed, and not having to be sit in traffic every day. What personal costs, right? If this is done right, done correctly, it can be a great life, right? Traditionally, men have been the ones that are out there dying early and working dangerous jobs, right? Those are personal costs. After watching hundreds of hours of YouTube content created by anti-feminist black women, I was able to identify dominant ideas and themes. I selected two content creators, Ebony Nikita, never heard of her, and Courtney Michelle, who utilized tactical patriarchy, femininity in different ways to connect with their viewers. I examined both their audio and visual content and the reactions from their viewers. Just as social media can disseminate black feminist thought, see Catherine Steele. It is also a home to misogynoir and the black manosphere. The black manosphere encompasses anti-feminist content across social media sites, but has particularly strong presence on YouTube. And I am going to stop right there. We're going to pick up with pickme going forward. So let me know your thoughts, your opinions. This is going to be part one. And we'll continue it going on from there, and hopefully she gets into it. So I'm sure that she's going to get into this. I'm sure she is, but she doesn't like, from what I can tell from the introduction, she doesn't like the fact that these ladies have chosen this particular life, and she doesn't like being. She thinks it's derogatory and beneath women to choose to be this way, to put on this type of performance in order to get the provisions of a provider male, and she thinks that's beneath them. And black women have made such strides that this is problematic. And why would you want to subject yourself to, what did she say, the psychological and personal costs associating the embodiment of distinctly subordinate position that women are relegated to within? Okay, All right. Well, I mean, listen, that's the way she feels about it. So I'm willing to listen and willing to learn. So, all right. So we'll pick it up from here. Pick me, black women in the black manosphere. We'll pick it up from there. Let me know your thoughts and opinions so far. Much love and peace, everyone.